All right, folks, welcome back. Stephen here with We Slay Dragons again. Wanted to expand on the last video, and we're going to be making some DIY buildings today, just to, cover our bases and show just how cheap we can really make this game. First order of business, I want to deal with this mushroom container. This is just an 8-ounce container of mushrooms. Already looks great. Looks like we could use this for a military building. The only thing I don't like about it is the recycling information on top. Very easy to deal with. I'm just going to take one of these containers and I'm going to cut out an appropriate sized square for it. I didn't grab my ruler. One moment. All right, we're back. Metal rulers, great investment. Definitely recommend it for any kind of hobby. Let's open this up. Doesn't have to be particularly clean. I'm just going to be using scraps off of this to cover up imperfections I don't like. Now, metal ruler is a great tool to have. Highly recommend having one for any amount of crafting that you're going to do. I don't think you're going to find one at a dollar store, but it's worth grabbing. This razor that I'm using, from the dollar store. Now, if you want to be extra pedantic about things, dollar stores, yeah, they're pretty terrible. But if you're broke and you don't have the option to grab something that's higher quality, then yeah, maybe you're stuck with it, or maybe it's all that you have in your area, especially if you live out in the middle of nowhere, because dollar stores sure do like the middle of nowhere. Yeah, we're just gonna clean this up. We don't have to be fancy about this. We're just throwing together some quick terrain for a game with friends. You can eyeball it, figure out about how much we need just to cover that little bit that we don't like. You can totally take as little time on this as you like I'm doing right now, or you can measure things out and make it look extra fancy. You can add more details to it, maybe 3D print like some turrets or something to throw on it. It's your terrain. Do what you want with it. I just want to inspire you to add more to your gaming table, because it makes the game more interesting, both visually and mechanically. So we've got a pretty good, that'll cover it up nicely. And once it's spray painted with some primer, it won't matter. Now, as far as glues are concerned, hot glue is wonderful because it's a very, 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 very quick bond. And it's good for really anything that's not metal. I'm using super glue right now because it's what I had on hand and I didn't want to deal with hot glue. Also, hot glue doesn't get a very good bond. There we go. We'll just leave that to dry. Maybe hold it for a little bit and see if we can get those edges down. If not, it's not a giant deal. Yeah, I can see myself using this as maybe a military fortification, possibly a bunker. Throw some infantry in there. Hide tanks behind it. What have you. And we're going to spray paint that later. Next up, let's clean up these Pop-Tart boxes. Now, these are definitely on the larger side compared to other buildings. So I think they'd work well for Metropolis. You could use this one, this big one here, for something like a mech bay. I think that's what we'll do with it. And again, we're just gonna cut off the sides. Don't have to push hard, just make multiple passes. Save your fingers. We're in no rush. Downside to this is that it is a very cheap razor. I should probably also move on to the next blade on here. I was using it for doing some drywall repairs in my poor basement. So we're going to hold on to this, and we can either put this here to add some visual interest to it, like along the bottom, or, you know, maybe along the top. I think I'm going to do it along the bottom though. Just, again, adding visual interest. The top part here is open a little bit, so again, we're just going to cover that up. And it'll all look okay, I think, once we've done a bit of spray painting. Now, if we wanted to take another step, we could do like some cover up on the corners, because we do have this line right here from where the box folds around. I don't think that's going to bother me too much, but if you wanted to, we could use that as inspiration for some more visual interest on it. Now, I also like having terrain that could potentially be destroyed, like buildings, to be hollow. It's the downside with the really nice 3D printed terrain, or like the Hex Tech that you can get from Gale Force 9 and Thunder Force Studios. It looks great, but it's not destructible. And something that I would really like to do is make a base for my terrain and have like a ruined version on that base that the full version sits on top of. And then as it takes damage and when it gets destroyed, you can just lift it off, and then you have ruins of what it is underneath. We'll do that in another video, or I plan to anyways. Go. I'm going to add some visual interest to this. Again with the super glue. Don't need much. And we're just going to throw it on there. And tell you what, I'm going to come back once we've finished adding all this to it. And once we've done the priming, and I'll show you how to dry brush these. Just spice them up a little bit. All right, see you soon. All right. We're back. I'm going to show you how to dry brush. This is already looking much better than it was before. I've also got our Pop-Tarts boxes looking better. You can see I added some features to them. I did wind up going with hot glue. The cardboard was just drinking up the super glue. So It's not perfect. You know, in a perfect world, I'd clean up this glue and stuff. I did add some more visual details with some of the extra scrap that I had. Added like some bay doors here. This is definitely going to be a mech bay with the size that it is. Covered up the top. Um, Gave it a quick spray prime in a flat red. It is still drying. And I think that's just because I had to go extra hard to cover up the blue. I missed a couple of spots, but that's okay. It's already looking way better than it did before. Here's the smaller one. And again, we just added some interesting visual features, added some doors down there. This can be like a barracks or something. These bigger ones, I think, definitely work well as like military buildings. But this one here, this is all dry enough. Technically, you want to give your primer like 24 hours to totally cure. But since this is a dry brush, we're not really putting anything wet on here that's going to pull it off. You don't need crazy expensive paint. I'm just using some Apple Barrel King's Gold. I thought that might add a nice, some nice edge highlighting. Normally, you'd want to go like just a shade or two lighter of, whoa, that's way too much paint. Normally, you want to go like a shade or two lighter, but I wanted to try something fun. So, with dry brushing, I definitely recommend grabbing a cheap makeup brush or maybe an old makeup brush. If you or your partner has worn makeup in the past. And you want to get a lot of that paint off. So we're going to get a bunch of it off on our palette, which is just a paper plate. And then we're going to use this napkin. You can also use a paper towel or a cloth. And you want to get most of it off. There we go. That's looking good. Majority of it is off. And then we're just going to lightly brush over it. And you can see how it's starting to catch those edges. And that's really all that we need the dry brushing for, is it's going to catch those edges and make them more noticeable, especially at a distance. Look at that. Already looking much better. We're going to do the same right here. We might need a little bit more paint on the brush. It's kind of getting this top edge here. It's a little bit noticeable. I might go a little bit heavier though. Normally you'd want to go like super, super light for like a small miniature or something. But I think for this we can go just a bit heavier. Oh yeah, I think that's better. It doesn't matter if we get a little bit extra on the edges or anything. This is, you know, better than just using the trash as it was. And also, you know, adds enough to it that it's going to look nice. Maybe not like super nice on its own, but as a terrain piece on a table with other pieces, it does work quite well. Again, we're just getting most of that paint off. And it's just light flicking so that it catches the edges. Wonder if there's ASMR videos for dry brushing. And this is something that really surprised me about wargaming as a hobby when I first got into it, because I avoided really jumping into anything for a long time because I was like, well, I'm not very good with painting. I don't have a very steady hand. And now it turns out the painting and like the hobby side of the hobby is really one of my favorite parts. Like I spend more time painting and just making terrain than I actually do playing the games. I still try and get in like, a game a month. Make sure we get a highlight on any of these interesting features. Make sure we get these corners. I'm doing more of a rubbing motion now with it. That's my timer telling me that my primer should be dry enough now. It's okay if we get a little bit extra on there. Again, we're just making some nice terrain for making the board more interesting to look at. We added some features to the terrain to make the terrain more interesting to look at. Adding some additional yellow to the base is fine. That's where like it might collect. Say there's like a lot of dust storms on this planet where our campaign is taking place. And there we go. That already looks pretty darn solid. Definitely going to let that dry for a while tomorrow. I'm going to give them a spray coat of some enamel just to protect this paint and help seal it down. And I'm going to do the same thing with our other buildings here. And, that'll all look pretty nice as well. I'll give you a little preview of what it's going to look like on some of the dry primer. Especially here on this, like, big bay door. I wanted to make sure that looked big enough that, like, a mech might be able to walk out. There we go. Just a little bit of dry brushing helps make those edges pop out, makes them more noticeable, makes the whole thing look less flat. So yeah, for the price of some cheap craft paints that I already had sitting around anyways, and like really, really cheap. Like I cannot stress how cheap the apple barrel paints are. You can get them most craft stores. Now I would avoid the acrylic paints from like a dollar store. I have had really bad luck with them. They have miserable coverage. They're probably okay for something like this, but frankly, for how decent these cheaper apple barrel products are, and how much better coverage they get, like I would just buy, like I think they have like a 16 pack or a 20 pack at like Walmart, or Michael's or Joann's or wherever. Yeah, there's some quality usefulness in those paints, especially for making terrain. I don't really use it on the mechs too much, but yeah, these have been a fantastic investment. I use them regularly, and they were cheap as hell, so totally worth it. Other things I would probably do with this, maybe get some stencils, maybe print up like some posters or pictures or something. Maybe stencil in like a mech bay across the top here. Just to, again, add that visual interest to your projects. Might go in with a little bit of black paint and black out these doors here. And then, yeah, you've got a bunch of nearly free terrain for your table, and just taking a couple extra steps, like you can knock this out in an afternoon, do it on a weekend or something. Get your kids involved if you have them paint up some buildings for you. Throw it all on a kitchen table like this, and you have a game going. Um, Keep in mind, wargaming is a hobby and a game. And you can engage with both sides of that as much or as little as you want to. There's a lot of people out there. I saw a poll sometime within this last year where less than half the people who paint miniatures actually play games with their miniatures, which is insane to me. But you know, if they're enjoying that side of the hobby and they don't want to play, then cool. If you want to make dioramas, this is a great place to get started. And then you also have stuff for the games when you do decide that you want to play them. So, all right, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope this inspires you to make some terrain for Alpha Strike. Make your tables a little bit more interesting. And I'll see you all next time. Maybe we'll do another crafting project. Maybe I'll do some more rules coverage, cover some of the optional rules, maybe how aerospace fighters work. Let me know down in the comments what kind of content you'd like to see pertaining to BattleTech. We had a really good response on the how to play Alpha Strike quick start rules video. Let me know if you want to see stuff on like Battle Force, classic BattleTech. I want to continue focusing on keeping the game cheap and accessible. So yeah, let me know what you think. All right, take care, everybody.